only on SportsGrid.
Ferrall has taken over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Well, hour 3 here of Coast to Coast on a NFL Draft Thursday. Don't forget about SportsGrid's incredible draft coverage starting tonight at 7:30 across the board on all of our outlets, on TV and on radio. The NFL Draft from Detroit tonight on SportsGrid, 7:30 until midnight at least. You get them all on there. Your boy Blue, Joey Pruns, Gopher the Tulisi, and Warren Sharp, the mad scientist, the Kevin Walsh, Big Ten Ben, you name it, they're all there covering the NFL draft tonight. By the way, we got some baseball to squeeze in here and a very disturbing story that Carver High is mentioned might be moved to the Ferrall finish. It might be more appropriate there. I refuse to move it to the Ferrall finish, and we'll deal with it right here and now, and it is rather uncomfortable. Do you want to start with that?
We will get there. We'll leave it for the end. Let's get through the games first, and we'll do that. Let's get that at the end. We do have a few games still going on. The Dodgers lead the Nationals 1-0 in the top of the fourth. Teoscar Hernandez with a home run for the Dodgers in that game. Padres up 6-4 on the Rockies in the bottom of the sixth, so they're actually scoring some runs there in Colorado today. And the Rockies have 2 on with nobody out in the bottom of the sixth. The Cubs have gotten ahead of the Astros. So Verlander, Scotty, he went 4 1/3, didn't give up any runs, but now a 3-1 lead for Chicago after Crow Armstrong homered in the sixth. He, of course, is the kid that they brought up when Bellinger got hurt. And the Royals are in a rain delay with the Blue Jays. That is 2-1. Brewers beat the Pirates. Guardians beat the Red Sox. Twins beat the White Sox. Phillies beat the Reds. And the Mariners beat the Rangers 4-3 earlier in Arlington. There is only one game on the schedule tonight. Before I get there, I'm going to tell you what happened in that game last night, and that was the Yankees beating the A's 7-3. It has been a very quiet start for number 99, Aaron Judge. But, Scotty, it was good to see a little right center field all rise on Prime Video last night. Here we go.
And a complete stop. And Judge takes advantage. High, deep, and gone. We saw the signs yesterday. We see the result tonight. Aaron Judge gives the Yankees a 2-0 lead.
Yeah, I thought Rizzo's was more impactful. I got to be honest. I mean, Judge's, I'll give him the homer off the balk call. The next pitch he hits out. And then, he barely got it out. It was in the second row. Let's calm down like that was some kind of a gargantuan shot. It was a line drive that barely made it over the wall. I mean, let's be honest.
2 things there.
You would have thought he hit it into the second deck with that call.
When you've gotten off, they haven't had a chance to call too many Aaron Judge home runs yet this year. So the fact that they got to do that gets everyone excited. And number 2, the call just wasn't great for Rizzo. So that's why we went with Judge. And Judge hasn't hit that many this year. So that's pretty much what were the reasonings behind our decisions that we made. They will go finish this 4-game series tonight in the Bronx. As we mentioned, it's the only night game. The Yankees will send Nestor Cortez, Nasty Nestor, to the mound. Alex Wood will go for the A's. Yankees are minus 275, plus 220 for Oakland, a 7.5 total at the stadium.
Yankees again, and I'd lay the 1.5. I think they'll win and finish off the A's and take this series and put it in the books.
You would like to think that would be the way to do it. Some nice, clean, easy work of the A's tonight. I think the Yankees are heading to Milwaukee tomorrow, Scotty, to face the Brewers this weekend. So there you go. You have that going on. The Yankees did also shut down DJ LeMahieu for at least another week after an MRI showed more swelling in his fractured right foot. Let's just cut to the chase. He doesn't play anymore either, or matter anymore. DJ LeMahieu. I mean, he must have been on the gas those 2 years. He was great, right? Like he was so great for 2 years, and he has been awful ever since. They gave money, they had to, whatever. This guy, he doesn't play.
He never plays.
When he does play, he's awful. He's bad.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue any of that. And like they just said he was coming back like last week. He was ready to go, and apparently he's not.
He is not ready to go. That is for sure. So there you go. You only have a couple of these, just one game tonight. So you want the umpire story now, Scott?
Yes.
Is that what you were looking for here?
Yes.
A fired umpire is suing Major League Baseball, claiming harassment and discrimination. This is Brandon Cooper, worked in the minor league Arizona Complex League last year, filed suit in federal court in Manhattan, saying he was sexually harassed by a female umpire and discriminated against because he is male and bisexual. So that is what the suit claims for him. Apparently, this other umpire, Gina Quartararo, then in the Florida State League, learned that he was bisexual and gave him homophobic slurs, crude remarks. Cooper said he notified Dellinger, who runs that unit, and was told he had to undergo sensitivity training after that. So he's suing Major League Baseball.
You can't even make this up, right? Like, so first of all, what does the guy's sexuality have to do with the price of tea in China besides nothing? Second of all,
correct.
This chick starts abusing him allegedly in the minors and giving him the business homophobic slurs and everything else allegedly, and attacks him allegedly and gives him nightmares. And then third of all, can you imagine going to your superiors and telling them that you have this problem, and then they force you to go to sensitivity training? Like, honest to Christ, this is the easiest lawsuit I've ever seen in my life. This is full-on discrimination at its highest level. And I would sue not only baseball, I would sue the guy that said I got to go have sensitivity training because what? I sleep with chicks and dudes? Like, this is the most ridiculous story I've ever heard. And then how about, now, if that were a chick and guys were giving her to business, they would all lose their jobs. If you give heat to some woman in sports, you're finished. You are finished. They will destroy you. But now you're telling me that chick umps can blast some guy that sleeps with dudes and chicks with homophobic slurs, and she gets away with it? Bull effing shack. How's that sound? You know what? You want to dish it out? You should have to take it. Okay? I think he's got a lawsuit. I don't care what anybody thinks. Slice it up. I mean, how ridiculous is this story? It's amazing to me. Who cares who this guy sleeps with? He's an ump. He goes to his job every night and calls games. And now you say he needs training because he sleeps with chicks and dudes? I mean, you can't make this stuff up. This is the most ridiculous thing I've heard in months.
He says he was eventually put on the taxi squad. He was put to the back of the line. He was skipped for the playoffs and then fired in October.
I mean, what is he?
He claimed he was the only one who was let go from among 26 umpires in the group. He alleged a hostile work environment and wrongful termination in the New York State and city law, of course, because Major League Baseball is based in New York, which is why he had to do it there.
I want to add one other thought, okay, just so we're clear here. If there is anyone that is awful at their jobs, it is Major League Baseball umpires. I mean, they're the worst. Mm-hmm. They are honestly, what a hack bunch of losers they are. Honestly, first of all, they're all fat asses. They all weigh 300-400 pounds. I mean, they can't even walk, let alone make a call. Secondly, they throw managers out now when fans yell something in the crowd. They're an embarrassment. Angel Hernandez, the worst ump I ever saw in my life at any level of any sport. And now you got chick umps. You finally let chicks be umpires, and they're out dropping homophobic slurs on some guy because he sleeps with chicks and dudes. Like, I mean, honestly, it really is laughable. I wish I was a lawyer sometimes. I'd be rich.
people that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
So I turned it off. I got my sweat done, and I'm leaving. I'm taking my money. I'm going home, and I don't want to talk to you for the rest.
Oh, yes!
There it is.
6-3. Catch the over. The over is hit. The Padres are our heroes.
That's how we end the show.
Oh, well, let's just sign off. Let's just call it a show.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
I think they're looking for a space where they can be comfortable, perhaps make some NIL money in the process, but be better set up long-term as opposed to it being 1 year jumping around.
You want to kind of get your core players that have been there a couple of years, and then go get the high-profile recruit, and then supplement at the transfer portal.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Ferrall coast to coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, Carver High, let's start focusing on tonight's NFL draft. A reminder, SportsGrid's dominating draft coverage will begin at 7:30 Eastern tonight across all levels on SportsGrid TV, SportsGrid, SportsGrid app, sportsgrid.com/watch, all of the OTTs, all the radio affiliates, SiriusXM, Channel 159, Sports Byline USA, Mightier 1090 in San Diego, from Mexico to the Canadian Rockies, all over the West Coast. Our coverage of the NFL draft at SportsGrid, second to none. It all begins tonight at 7:30. All hands on deck.
All hands on deck tonight, indeed. We're going to need to get Killer Keith Mitchell a new putter here over at the Zurich. Throwing the putter after a bad putt there. Never good. Can't throw the putter out there, that's for sure. It is the NFL draft, the first round, as you just mentioned. All the speculation ends tonight. The months and weeks of the rumors and who likes this quarterback and who likes that quarterback and who's going to trade up and who's going to trade down. It all ends tonight, Scotty. In the first round. We know that Caleb Williams is going to go number one. We don't have to worry about that. Let's see who's the favorites for all these other top picks. Jaden Daniels has now moved to minus 1,000 for Jaden Daniels to go number two to Washington. I'm pretty secure about that one as well, Scotty.
Yeah, listen, like I thought even Davis was crazy today. Like I thought maybe for a second there he was crazy. Like, they're taking this guy, too, and I'm surprised at some level that, the Bears didn't think twice about it themselves, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. It sounds like he's the guy, I guess, like he said, there's, you get a couple of these little smokescreen stories that, he's not thrilled about going there, or he's not, well, that's too bad.
I don't care.
You want to play in the NFL? You go where you're drafted. You're not John Elway and you're not Eli Manning. You're going to go where you're drafted, and that's kind of the way that it is.
Is there anything more painful? Is there anything more painful in sports now than these players or their parents or their handlers or their reps or their agents or their lawyers that try to control the narrative of where these athletes end up. Is there anything more ridiculous? It really is. Like, I have heard this nonsense about this guy for the last month, and it really is nauseating. It really is. It is so ridiculous because none of it is true.
No doubt, and we can't stand stuff like this. And look, we did the story a couple weeks ago, right? That Dion, was like, well, my kid's not only playing for these 5 teams, and Travis Hunter's only playing. Who are you? This is the NFL draft. All right, you want to get drafted? You're gonna tell these kids somebody wants to take your son, 4th overall in next year's draft. You're going to tell them that they can't draft him or they shouldn't draft him? Just stop.
Listen,
it's nonsense.
I got 5 left. This guy is I won't deny what he did at Boulder was kind of a revolution. I thought it was an amazing scenario of what he pulled off. I mean, the whole deal, the national narrative, the TV, every game on network TV, selling sunglasses, getting on every show that matters, getting every kid famous, and getting every kid paid. I won't deny that what he pulled off really was magnificent. Although I will say they didn't win anything. They sucked.
No.
Okay, so I don't want to hear how great he's just the greatest coach that ever lived. My ass. They didn't win anything. They sucked. At the end of the day, they were the most overrated team in America, and that's just all there is to it. You talk about how good they were. What, they win 2 games? What they win? Nothing. They won nothing. He is so full of Shaq. It's coming out his ears. I mean, he could sell cars with no wheels on them to you. He's so full of it. I am not falling for his act, let alone listening to him dictate where his kids are going to play in the NFL. Like, honest to Christ already, shut up. Shut up. You run nothing. That whole thing is an act. That's all an act. Just like when he played. I'll tell you what, when he played, he was a way better player in college and pros, in both the NFL and in baseball and at Florida State than he ever was as this phony coach that he is. He's not a winner. He ain't winning anything. And he won't go to that playoff either. He won't be one of those 12 teams. You know why? Because he's a phony. He doesn't win anything. Tell me I'm wrong. What does he win? Nothing. He wins no games that matter. They got their ass beat like 8 times. They suck. He sucks as a coach. And you can quote me on that. Christ, at least bring him back as a player. At least that was fun to watch. His teams aren't good. I don't care what anybody says.
I'm still trying to figure out how he blew that 30-point lead to Stanford at home.
Not exactly. What a fail. Stanford was awful. The girls' team's better. They don't even have a girls' team.
Not exactly the Andrew Luck, Christian McCaffrey Stanford teams either this past year.
Overrated.
The third pick is the pick that has gotten a lot of smoke and speculation. That's the Patriots. Drake May is minus 300 to be drafted there. This is where everyone says the trade is going to happen. Somebody is going to move up to number 3, trade with the Patriots.
Well, I'm just concerned for your boy Gopher the 2. Like, he's basically telling me that this guy's awful. He's awful.
He's going to drop like a rock.
He get dropped like a rock, and he's awful, and he's not a good quarterback. Well, we'll find out about that here in a few hours. Because they don't listen to him, and they don't listen to anybody. They do what they want. This is the NFL. This isn't this TV network, okay? This is the NFL we're dealing with here. Let's be real. He is going. Boom. That'll be that.
I agree. He's going to get picked in the top 5. Top 3. I don't love him either, but he is going to get picked because they can't help themselves. Pick number 4 is Arizona. For now, Marvin Harrison Jr. minus 350. That seems like a pretty good consensus as well, that they would get the big kid to go with Kyler Murray.
This is automatic. Listen, and I don't deny Joe watches as much college football as anyone on earth, but I don't know in what world that you can say that kid sucks. But I think Harrison's automatic. He's a done deal.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
So I turned it off. I got my sweat done, and I'm leaving. I'm taking my money. I'm going home, and I don't want to talk to you the rest.
Oh, yes!
There it is.
6-3. Cast the over. The over is hit. The Padres are our heroes.
That's how we end the show. That's how we end the show.
Oh, what? Let's just sign off. Let's just call it a show.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
I think they're looking for a space where they can be comfortable, perhaps make some NIL money in the process, but be better set up long-term as opposed to it being 1 year jumping around.
You want to kind of get your core players that have been here a couple of years, and then go get the high-profile recruit, and then supplement at the transfer portal.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad, bad, bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Ferrall coast to coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, check out a new betting market for the NHL playoffs that you can only get with MGM. They have empty net goal markets for entire slates as well as specific games. Find them in the app under NHL tab, then the props tab. You can also find the specific game markets under each game along with the NHL props tab. You're styling with BetMGM. Check it out at BetMGM.com. All right, Carver High, we continue on with more draft talk and hype leading into tonight's first round in the Motor City.
Yeah, we certainly do, Scotty. Let me just give you a couple more of these markets here. The Chargers have the 5th pick for right now, of course, and barring any trades. Now, they had a couple of different guys favored here. I know yesterday Malik Neighbors was favored to go in this slot. But now J.C. Latham, the tackle out of Bama, he is now at the top of the board at plus 200 for this pick. J.J. McCarthy, Joe Alt, and Neighbors now plus 550. So we have seen some change on this board here throughout the day.
Yeah, I'm not buying that either. I think frankly, for my money, that first defensive player going off the board would be to Atlanta at 8. But what do I know? I don't know anything. I just bet on millions of college football games and make people tons of money. I don't really know anything.
The Giants have the 6th pick. Last one that I'll give you with these. Neighbors now at plus 160. And then Odunze at plus 250. J.J. McCarthy at 5-1. A lot of the Giant people here in town, Scotty, have been saying that they think the Giants are taking a quarterback. I understand that your boy hurt his neck again last year, but that really seems like a misuse of resources that 14 months after giving your starting quarterback $45 million a year, you're going and using a top 6 pick on another quarterback. That's that's very tough.
Not only that, respectfully, I think that I've heard all day today that they're trading up to 3 to get a quarterback. Yeah. So I've heard all I can take about the Giants quarterback rumors. I know this much. They owe one guy $45 million, and he stinks.
That's very true. That is very true. Here's a bunch of the big names tonight and what their over-under position is here. McCarthy, 5.5. Alt, 7.5. Bowers, 11.5. There's Jared Verse at 15.5. I like that under, Scotty, for Verse from Florida State. Brian Thomas at 19.5. Please get to the Bills at 26. Cooper DeJean, Bo Nix at 32.5, right at the end of the first round.
Yeah, I think what I've heard is that he'll get in based on somebody's going to make a move to get him so that they can get him in the first round and have a fifth-year option on a quarterback, because that's what these teams want. Now, I'll say this. I think that Graham Barton guy will be under the 20 in a hook. You've heard the rumors left and right. The Steelers are going to get him at center. That's who they're going to draft. And then, look, I think Adunze, and obviously I think you're right about Verse. I think the kid, Neighbors, whatever, from LSU, those guys are going fast. If I were the Giants, I'm just saying hypothetically, you got this guy already you're paying $45 million to, and he has literally a naked wide receiver group. He has no one that can do anything. They're awful. They have no receivers. So how can you blame him and Dable and Shane? How can they blame Daniel Jones? And I think he's average at best. I think he's better running the ball than he is throwing it. But how can you blame him for their lack of depth at receiver? If I were them, I'd go get that kid from LSU and be done with it. And finally, Jones would have somebody to throw the ball to. They don't need J.J. McCarthy. What they need is somebody to catch the effing football.
Especially when you think about, look, how special these LSU receivers have been, right? Jefferson, Chase. I mean, when Beckham first came out, they're the ones who drafted him. I mean, these LSU receivers, they have been worth the price of admission in the top 10 of the draft. So I'm with you. That's the way that I would play it if they were sitting there at 6 and that guy was there. Wide receivers over under 6.5. I like the over, Scotty, at plus 230. I think we'll get 7 wide receivers at some point towards the back of the round.
So you're saying 7 receivers in the first round get drafted?
Yep. That's what I'm
fair
thinking.
Enough.
7.
Fair enough. Now, look, I think it's going to be over to 19. I think it'll be 20, and then I think it'll be 12. I think it'll go over the 10.5 in terms of defensive players as well in the first round.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
So I turned it off. I got my sweat done, and I'm leaving. Taking my money. I'm going home, and I don't want to talk to you for the rest.
Oh, yes!
There it is.
6-3. Cast the over. The over is hit. The Padres are our heroes.
That's how we end the show.
Oh, what? Let's just sign off. Let's just call it a show.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
I think they're looking for a space where they can be comfortable, perhaps make some NIL money in the process, but be better set up long-term as opposed to it being 1 year jumping around.
You want to kind of get your core players that have been there a couple of years, and then go get the high-profile recruit, and then supplement at the transfer portal.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here, because I'll tell you, that's a bad, bad, bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Ferrall coast to coast, only on SportsGrid.
Adam Caplan is our NFL insider, and he's at the network studios in Ferrall in New Jersey, down the shore, getting ready for our unprecedented draft coverage and unequaled, for that matter, starting at 7:30 tonight on SportsGrid. Adam, good to see you. And I want to start with, you were just having this conversation with me. I might as well be selfish here and start with my Steelers because they want to move. Stay out of this, Carver High. Mind your own, Buffalo Bills. Mind your own problems. Guys laughing in the back. Anyway, I got enough problems. So they want to move Jones over to the left side, which is his natural position. He was playing on the right side, and then they never ran to him. Meanwhile, the guy's 7 foot tall, a monster, 350 pounds. I never understood what they were doing with, frankly, Canada's offense. So you're saying they're going to go after a right tackle in the 20th pick, and I thought they were going after this center from Duke, Barton.
Yeah, Graham Barton, let's talk about him. He really is a right tackle center who could play left tackle. Most teams also could play guard, by the way, but it's going to be hard for him to play left tackle, so his value won't be as high as the 20th pick overall, most likely. What your Steelers want is, and you alluded to it, when they drafted Broderick Jones, they always knew he would transfer over to the left tackle position at some point. Dan Moore was the left tackle for the most part last season. He will now be a versatile backup, a backup right tackle and left tackle. So they want to draft a right tackle. They'd love to have J.C. Latham amongst a list that I've heard that they're looking at there, but they definitely want that right tackle. Now, I know other people will say, well, what about a wide receiver? The top wide receivers are going to be gone by then. They can get a wide receiver in the second round. This is an historically great and deep wide receiver class, Scott. So they're going to get that. They're going to shore up their offensive line. And I know you're looking at center. Right now, they don't have a starting center. They can get that as the draft progresses. And Nick Herbig, by the way, his brother, also could also look at playing center. But Nate Herbig is his name. But Nate's the guy that you want as a backup guard and center. They'll look for a center also later in the draft.
So the biggest mover for you in the first round tonight, the team that has to make sharp decisions, is the Minnesota Vikings.
Has to be. See, Scott, the Vikings back themselves into a corner here. They must get a quarterback. By making that trade earlier to get a extra first-round pick, they do not now have a second or third-round pick. So they must get a quarterback by the end of the round. They've got 2 picks. They've got the earlier first-round pick, and then they got number 23. So one way or the other, they've got to get one. They're a team to watch as we get started. Once the draft starts, that's a team to watch to potentially trade up. The name that I've heard consistently this week is J.J. McCarthy, the quarterback from Michigan. I know he doesn't wow some people. I've talked to people, as I've put out for Pro Football Network, that's got second-round grades, even early third-round grade. But he is a West Coast offensive quarterback. What do the Vikings run? An old-school West Coast system that Sean McVay runs, and Kevin O'Connell now obviously runs it. He's a disciple of McVay, and that's a good fit for J.J. McCarthy, who's going to go most likely in the upper half of this round. Again, the Vikings have to have their quarterback. They can't come out of the first round without one.
So, obviously, we've heard rumors about, J.J. McCarthy thought he was going to the Giants. It doesn't matter what he thinks. Do you believe that they are actually after a quarterback, or do you think they'll ever get a receiver for Daniel Jones to throw the ball to, or is he just going to, throw to ghosts or his mother?
Yeah. So wide receiver, the guy that I've looked at a lot is Rome Odunze, the sort of X-receiver. He's a single-side receiver, big guy. The Giants don't have that number 1 receiver. They've got a bunch of number 3s. That's a receiver that they will look at number 6. Now, at the quarterback, Daniel Jones, they cannot get rid of his contract. He's making $35 million fully guaranteed. He's coming off a torn ACL. No one's going to trade for him. They're not going to cut him. But they have to make a decision on his contract by mid-March. If they get rid of him by mid-March, they won't owe him that money. That's guaranteed by mid-March. That's when the guarantee vests. So they have to make a decision before then. But quarterback is certainly something they're looking at number 6. And again, the Patriots, they don't have that trade worked out right now. I've said it for weeks now. It's Drake May. They're not getting the value that they'd like to trade down. Drake May is a guy that doesn't have to start, by the way. Doesn't have to start week 1. They've got Jacoby Brissett as that bridge quarterback. If May is not ready, Jacoby Brissett will be the guy. And he did a very good job some years ago filling in for Andrew Luck, who who suddenly retired with the Colts.
Why do people, including people here at the network, think that Drake May is going to be a terrible NFL player? Why is that?
The issue with Drake May, Scott, talking to people that I've kind of looked at and talked to over the last couple of weeks has been this. Not the most accurate quarterback. Yes, he's got great athleticism and size, but he moves when he shouldn't move. He tries to make the big play, so-called hero ball. That does worry people. And when you talk to people, scouts and front office people, they'll tell you that does worry you. But you got to be patient. I wouldn't call him a project. He's a guy that needs development. I know when you're picking at 3, and if they go with Drake May, was I think what I thought for weeks they're going to go with. If they do that as expected, you can't just believe he's going to be ready week 1. You can't just throw him in there. I know when you're picking at 3, eventually the guy's going to play this season, but he's got to show that he's ready. Some coaches, Scott, who I've talked to, believe that you play and you learn that way. But to me, I don't think Drake May is going to be ready to play week 1, but he'll absolutely play the season.
So do you believe the Bills will make a trade based on their need for receivers and that by 28, all the good ones will be gone already?
The guy that they like is Xavier Worthy, the fastest receiver for this draft. That's a guy that won't get past the Chiefs if he gets past Buffalo. Brian Thomas is another guy.
Right.
After the first 4 guys, it becomes Brian Thomas from LSU, who's a higher graded receiver, but he's not the speedster. He's not the speedster that Worthy is. Worthy is dynamite. He's explosive. He's kind of fearless. For a smaller guy, he's willing to get after it, and he's explosive. And by the way, he's also an excellent returner. So those are the 2. Now, if the Bills don't get those guys, if those guys are gone, that's a trade down situation. By the way, and the reason is the Bills, not only do they need 2 starting receivers, they need 2 starting corners, and they need some safeties. They got a lot of work to do, as you and I have been talking about on SportsGrid for the last couple of weeks.
Do you believe that there's some talk that the Jets would want this Bowers, and there's talk that they'll pass on Bowers and deal with the trenches instead? What do you think they'll do?
Yeah, Scott, I felt all along that they're going to go offensive line. Joe Douglas, who's done a really good job. The one area where he's missed, we know about quarterback, but it's going to be Aaron Rodgers for this year. And they also believe there's a chance he comes back next year. That's why I don't believe they'll go for a quarterback. But when you look at it, their available pass target group, it's Garrett Wilson, who's their ex-receiver. Now, Alan Lazard didn't work out last year. He got benched. $10 million fully guaranteed. That's why he's back. They've got Mike Williams, who's come back from a torn ACL. I'm told they believe that he'll be ready sometime in August, but they don't know how good he'll be able to be early on the season. They got to address that receiver position. Keep an eye on Roma Dunze if he does drop to them. But Brock Bowers, Tyler Conklin, their starting tight end, is on the last year of his deal. It's about available pass targets, guys who could catch the football. Bowers will be in the conversation, but Scott, the one area Joe Douglas has not gotten it right is on the offensive line. He didn't get it right with Becton. You and I have talked about that. They brought in Dwayne Brown. Dwayne Brown had shoulder problems. They need a left tackle in the worst way. They've got to get it right. And there will be plenty of left tackles they could look at number 10.
So Terrion Arnold, right, and then McKinstry at Alabama. Terrion's going to get drafted in the first round. Is Kool-Aid?
I've talked to teams that don't have a first-round grade on him. It's not so much the injury. It's that Terrion Arnold's got better consistency. He's got better versatility. Arnold could play inside, he could play the slot, and he could play outside. Physically tough player. But I do believe Arnold, by the way, will go before McKinstry, and Quinnion Mitchell is going to be the first cornerback off the board.
Unbelievable. Tonight at 7:30, SportsGrid's coverage of the 24 NFL Draft from the Motor City, live from our network studios in Philadelphia. The whole crew on hand, including our NFL insider, Adam Caplan. Have a great show tonight, Adam. Enjoy the draft.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year. Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy, in the first half of the first round. You clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
So I turned it off. I got my sweat done, and I'm leaving. I'm taking my money. I'm going home, and I don't want to talk to you the rest.
Oh, yes!
There it is.
6-3. Catch the over. The over is hit. The Padres are our heroes.
That's how we end the show. That's how we end the show.
Oh, what? Let's just sign off. Let's just call it a show.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
I think they're looking for a space where they can be comfortable, perhaps make some NIL money in the process, but be better set up long-term as opposed to it being 1 year jumping around.
You want to kind of get your core players that are going to be there a couple of years, and then go get the high-profile recruit and then supplement at the transfer portal.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad, bad, bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Ferrall coast to coast, only on SportsGrid.
No one will have better coverage of the NFL draft than SportsGrid. Can you even fathom having our insider, Adam Caplan, teamed up with the mad scientist himself, our lead analyst at SportsGrid, Warren Sharp, and you catch him on Coast to Coast throughout the NFL season every Thursday. He's unbelievable, looking sharp as ever. What are you excited most for tonight in Detroit happening with this first round? As you know, there's nothing like sharp football analysis. You got to have something going on big. You always do. What do you got for me?
Well, first of all, I just want to say everybody who's listening right now, obviously, thank you. You love them as viewers of your show. Tune in to us. Stick around. 7:30. We're going to be on until midnight live. Everybody is here. We're going to be breaking it down like nothing else. So hopefully you guys can keep us on a screen as you're following along with the draft. We're going to be going through analyzing every single pick. Look, I'm going to be a big fan tonight of Kool-Aid. I've got some Kool-Aid under 28.5. There's a few cornerbacks. You know, Adam was just talking about one of them, Mitchell. We're looking at some of the cornerbacks going relatively earlier than expected in certain cases. But by the sounds of it, you know, this is one of those drafts, for me at least, when you're trying to get some bets in early, that there's been a lot of just confusion and uncertainty this year, more than some in the past, with a lot of different teams looking to try to trade up, looking to make some moves. And even some of the better teams, you know, some of the better teams like the Bills may be going up, like the 49ers may be trying to go up and trading players with the Diana Rossini report that came out with regard to Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk getting traded. So there's a lot of uncertainty here. It's going to make for an exciting draft to watch and a lot of great reactions in terms of analysis. So I'm really looking forward to the content we're going to be able to bring.
You got to be kidding me. I saw that story that Deebo and Ayuk are allegedly on the table here, and they're talking to teams about trading them. And then is Brock going to throw to his mommy? Who's he going to throw to, his dog? Honestly, well, I'm not falling for that.
I think they want too much. They do want to get picks in exchange for these guys. I don't think they're going to trade both. They're just offering them both out there if a team has a certain preference, because they're very different receiver types. But they want to move up. You know, these guys get expensive, and they're looking to get another young guy because after this season, you know, Brock is going to be on the table for a new contract, right? And Kyle Shanahan is going to need to figure out how to win with a quarterback that's actually taking up a bigger portion of that salary cap, because he hasn't had to do that very much. Jimmy G, some of these guys were in the cheaper years of their deals. And then he just sort of lucked into Brock Purdy, who obviously is peanuts right now. But because where Brock was drafted, he does not have a 5th-year option. So he only has those 4 years. They're going to be paying him soon. They're trying to get some younger wide receivers that are going to be able to pay dividends, because Trent Williams at left tackle, I mean, he is commanding a quarterback salary cap hit every single year.
So, Warren, a lot of teams like the Cardinals, Packers, and Rams have a lot of picks. Can you imagine the Cardinals when they get their hands on Harrison Jr. and then they have the most picks? They have along with 3 teams having that many picks. There's so much they can do. If they don't end up with a spectacular draft, something's wrong with them, because it's going to start real strong right from the jump.
Well, that's why a lot of Cardinals fans, I mentioned how much draft capital the Cardinals have. It's the most in this year's draft. It's the most in memory since I've been tracking draft capital. And they have a ton of capital, and they are reluctant to trade too far down. They might move out of 4 because that pick is so valuable, especially if, let's say, Drake May is on the clock, or on the board still. But they still want to get one of those impact players, because they just don't have very many impact players. It's one thing to have a lot of capital in the mid rounds, but you need to put that capital to use up top. And so some of their fans were getting in my replies wondering, why would they trade down if they have that much capital? Just select an impactful guy at the top of the draft. They very well might stick and pick at 4, but they're going to walk out of this thing with one of the most impactful wide receivers that we have seen in the NFL drafted in some time. And I'm looking forward to it. And another franchise that has the opportunity to turn things around quickly is in Washington. And they're selecting number 2, but they have the most draft capital since 1999, when I've started tracking draft capital. So yes, they've got the number 2 pick, but they still have a lot of capital even after that to draft another 1 to 2 impactful players, maybe even trade back up into the first round to go after an offensive lineman to help protect what I believe will be Jaden Daniels coming off the board at 2.
Who are your favorite offensive linemen in the draft? Of who you think the best picks are?
Yeah, J.C. Latham is this guy that's been rocketing up draft boards. He has taken so much late steam. It looked for a while that it was going to be Joe Alt being the first offensive lineman drafted, but I've seen a lot of credible mocks with guys that have a track record of doing pretty well. They're mocking J.C. Latham at 5 to the Chargers. The Chargers end up sticking and picking, or they could trade down slightly, but still getting J.C. Latham if that's the case, because J.C. Latham, he's that right tackle. You've already got a left tackle. You need that right tackle to help. We know that the Chargers are going to come in with Greg Roman as their new offensive coordinator and Jim Harbaugh as their head coach. They're going to turn this team into a run-first offense. They're going to be trying to run the football. They don't have very many wide receivers at all left on the roster. They lost Keenan Allen. They lost Mike Williams. So they're going to need to get somebody there to help run block and pass protect for Justin Herbert when they are dropping back. And so I'm excited for these guys at the top, but there's going to be a lot of wide receivers going, a lot of quarterbacks going, a lot of offensive linemen going as well. A lot of teams have the opportunity to get better because this is a deep offensive line draft.
Do you still think Bo Nix slips into this first round tonight somehow so somebody can get a 5th-year option, or do you think he's more of a Friday guy?
I think he's a Friday guy. I mean, I could be wrong. I look forward to being wrong if I am, but I don't think he's a first round quarterback. And I don't think it's really worth it to move up to get a quarterback just for that 5th-year option, because those 5th-year options now are quite expensive and for quarterbacks. And I'd rather get an impactful offensive lineman who will start helping your team right now, year 1.
Great to see you. I can't wait to watch you tonight with our coverage on SportsGrid of the 24 NFL Draft. Thanks for coming on Coast to Coast today. Good to see you.
people that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
So I turned it off. I got my sweat done, and I'm leaving. Taking my money. I'm going home, and I don't want to talk to you for the rest.
Oh, yes!
There it is.
6-3. Catch the over. The over is hit. The Padres are our heroes.
That's how we end the
show.
show.
What? Let's just sign off. Let's just call it a show.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
I think they're looking for a space where they can be comfortable, perhaps make some NIL money in the process, but be better set up long-term as opposed to it being 1 year jumping around.
You want to kind of get your core players that have been there a couple of years, and then go get the high-profile recruit, and then supplement at the transfer portal.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad, bad, bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Ferrall coast to coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, Carver High, you got some news from that Ranger Capital series?
Yes, we do. Of course, they'll play Game 3 tomorrow night in D.C. It looks like the Rangers, Filipino's going to travel with them. He hasn't played since November, Scotty, so we'll see if they can get him back in the lineup. They're already up 2-0. They don't even like they need more firepower, but maybe Filipino will get back going sooner.
Played all year, suddenly going to jump on the ice and start doing things. Give me a break.
Yeah, you're up 2-0. I wouldn't rush anything.
He's not Mark Stone.
Here's the Bears' new stadium plans that you were looking for yesterday. Look at that. Look at right on the water. And look, that's guy. They put a dome on it, too. A little dome right out on the water for the Bears.
I mean, it really is a phenomenal stadium proposal and plan, and the area and all kinds of parks and all kinds of shopping and all kinds of restaurants and bars and everything, and just the greatest location right along Navy Pier and right along the Lake Michigan there in Chicago. This is what they should have been doing all along instead of trying to please Ed Olczyk and build a stadium down the street from Eddie's house so he could stop by the racetrack in Arlington and then go right over to the Bears game after he's done turning in his tickets at the window. The Bears should have always played in Chicago. Now, Carver High, we do have some fans clamoring for some level of Ferrall finish. There has been rather disappointed fans that the changes with this network and programming here has affected some people's evenings. I want to start with this one. The doctor who drove his Tesla off a cliff. Now, it's always a strong effort when you go off that way. You go out with drive off the cliff like in a movie in Hollywood. You drive around a corner in the Hollywood Hills and then go right off the cliff, and that's the end of you. This guy was paranoid that his kids were going to be sex trafficked, so he killed everyone together. Killed them, killed himself, drove off a cliff. I mean, could you have at least left the car for somebody? It's a nice car, honestly. Ex-school cop, I love this guy on the run after killing his teacher ex-wife at her school, slaughtered her. Then while he was at it, he murdered his girlfriend.
They caught this guy, high-speed chase.
But he abducted a kid as well on the day he was due in court for child rape. My guy went on a binge on a heater. McDonald's wacko slugs and pistol whips and shoots the pinky off a fellow diner, shot a guy in the hand, blew off his pinky, and it was all over barbecue sauce. My man got all flustered about his dipping potential for his food. 54 spring breakers arrested in Savannah, Georgia, bash amid booze-soaked brawls and beaches flooded with trash. You know, these kids on spring break, you just can't trust them, Carver High. Once they start drinking Fireball, the clothes come off and everything else. 2 off-duty NYPD cops arrested for alleged sexual assault of an intoxicated woman. Now, let's get this straight. We have a story here of 2 off-duty NYPD cops raping some chick, allegedly, that was intoxicated. Always good to check in on our finest. The men in blue here in NYPD, when they take the uniform off and they start drinking and drugging, they're just like any other criminal when they go off and start raping chicks. An airline worker claims she almost went blind after drinking bug-infested airport coffee. I have never heard of bug-infested coffee. It just does not sound good, Carver High. The Costa Rica beans are covered with bugs and poison that make you go blind when you drink that morning cup of Java. An alleged killer of 19-year-old college student had a sex dungeon in his basement with slings and restraints and handcuffs. He also butchered and chopped up this girl into pieces. My man was like Jeff Dahmer over here, eating people, carving them up, carving their heart out of their chest and eating it, leaving the rest in the fridge for another day, for refreshing after meals. Unbelievable, your guy. All right, Carver High, that's enough Ferrall finish stories of grim and ill repute. Tonight on SportsGrid, the greatest NFL draft coverage anywhere. 7:30 to midnight right here. You know the litany of big names on this broadcast. You're going to love it. And they're doing it Friday night. We will see you again here tomorrow at 3 o'clock Eastern for another exciting dose of Coast to Coast. Enjoy the draft.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
So I turned it off. I got my sweat done, and I'm leaving. I'm taking my money. I'm going home, and I don't want to talk to you the rest.
Oh, yes!
There it is.
6-3. Cast the over. The over is hit. The Padres are our heroes.
That's how we end the show. That's how we end the show.
Oh, well, let's just sign off. Let's just call it a show.
In-game Ferrall Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
To the 2024 Stanley Cup odds, the Hurricanes remain the favorite, followed by the Panthers and the Rangers. Interesting that they all are coming from the similar side of the bracket.
While the Oilers have the top-end talent, I still don't think they have enough depth, and Stuart Skinner does not scare me in net. So I will take a long series from the Oilers and the Kings, and ultimately I think the Stars are the ones coming out of the West for the Stanley Cup.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
The Philadelphia 76ers, who are the second best team in this Eastern Conference by a mile when Joel Embiid is healthy. And that's just what they are. So now, if Giannis isn't available, the Bucks would be dogs in the series.
He ain't sleeping on that air mattress anymore. He's got a regular king-size bed, a Posturepedic, what do they call it? A Sealy's, whatever they do, those things. He ready to roll. Denominating tonight.
Game time decisions.